Hey guys, um, with all the info going on out in the world today about what's happening with mortgage interest rates and so on, there's a lot of talk about when we're entering the process with a buyer, who they're using for their financing. There's a lot of talk about who people should go with. Some buyers have no idea who they should be going with. Experienced buyers think they want to use their same lender they've always used, their families used, their mom used, or an uncle who was a veteran they used. I'm going to talk to you about why who your lender is so much more than just the interest rate they can offer you. Who your mortgage lender is can literally make or break whether your offer is accepted in a multiple offer situation. And yes, multiple offer situations are still going on out here, at least in our neck of the woods here in Southwest Michigan. That hasn't really changed in certain price points and condition of homes. And so this could still be crucial who your lender is when it comes to who the listing agent is advising their client to go with based on that factor alone. You can have 3 offers that are all the same exact terms, same price, everything like that, and who the lender is can make or break whether your offer is accepted. And the reason that is that any listing agent who's worth their weight in gold is going to be advising their seller whether this lender is a well-known lender, reliable, whether they know that they do their due diligence or not. And we're going to dive into that a little bit more further of what that all means. But as a listing agent, when I'm advising my seller, if I know big conglomerate mortgage lender A over here, I won't mention names, is known for not vetting the buyer very well, and 3 weeks into the process, things are falling apart because they didn't vet the buyer oh my goodness, they didn't vet the buyer very well, and the deal falls through, and I'm aware that this happens habitually with that particular lender. I'm going to be advising my seller of that. So probably not going to be one that I would recommend my seller go with. So obviously, if I'm representing you as a buyer agent, these are discussions we're going to have as well of, why that may or may not be a good lender for you and how it can literally cost you a deal. Another reason that can cost you a deal in a multiple offer situation is maybe they're a lender who's known to have such a tedious underwriting process, or underwriters, I should say, that some of the conditions they require be met on even conventional financing are so tedious that the deal can fall through for those reasons. And there are even some local lenders here that we're starting to see that with. And so again, as a buyer, these are things you're going to want to know, because a listing agent may advise their seller not to go with your lender because of some of these factors. So picking a lender is so much more than picking a rate. Another reason that it's really important who your lender is versus what the rate is. And granted, I understand rates are important to people because ultimately you have to have the money and the affordability to buy a house. But if you're talking a 1/4% or even a 0.5%, I understand that could mean a lot to you over the long run. But if it means you don't get the house of your dreams because you're picking a lender that local agents know is not a good lender, and so they're advising sellers against taking your offer, it's a big deal. And one of the reasons too that who your lender is can affect whether your offer is accepted. If you pick a lender that is well known in the area for not doing their due diligence on the front end when they're pre-qualifying buyers, we as listing agents start to pick up on that pretty quickly. And these are, well, again, any listing agent worth their weight in gold knows history and that kind of thing with certain lenders. And if a lender's not doing their due diligence on that front end, what that means is there's different factors about a buyer that can actually make them not even qualify, even if they have a really good credit score, they have a huge down payment, and for a whole lot of aspects, they look like really good buyers. There's so many things that go into whether they're a good buyer or not. And if you have a lender that actually doesn't know how to vet that buyer and properly pre-qualify them, you can be 3 weeks under process. You've accepted an offer and you're the buyer, say, and you've paid for inspections, appraisal. You've got money invested into this already at this point, and then the lender comes along and says, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize that you're in the middle of a divorce, and because of the kind of loan that you're going with, one of their guidelines is you can't be in the middle of a divorce. So sorry, you don't actually qualify for the mortgage anymore. Hope that's okay. Well, of course, it's not going to be okay. That's a big deal for everybody involved, but especially you as the buyer. So important to have a lender who is asking all the really important questions on the front end, and sometimes that isn't even answered in the application that they have you fill out ahead of time. Some other things that can be a huge factor, let's say you have student loans and they're a deferment, and your loan officer doesn't actually calculate that into your debt to income ratio. I physically have seen this happen before with a local lender, didn't know what he was doing, and didn't factor that in to the buyer's pre-qualification. I had the buyer, we were under contract, he had paid for inspections and an appraisal, and he gets the phone call that we're so sorry, I didn't realize that I had to account for your student loan debt in your debt to income ratio. Say what? Dude, you had one job. He failed. So super frustrating, very disheartening for the buyer. The buyer's out money, and the lender is basically like, so sorry, sucks to suck, you know. So these are things that are there. It's a pretty big deal. And having an inexperienced lender or even an experienced lender who doesn't know how to do their job well, this is going to affect you in the process of buying a home, and actually make it so that you think you can, and then you find out you can't after you're very emotionally invested and financially invested. One of the other things that can factor into, you know, your eligibility to qualify for a mortgage is how long you've been at your job, or if you decide to go from being a W-2 employee to you're going to be self-employed. And I've actually seen lenders that don't have that discussion or have it on an application or what have you. And so again, you're in a situation where they haven't done their due diligence, and now the buyer doesn't qualify because the buyer's like, oh yeah, I'm self-employed. I became self-employed 6 months ago. And the lender's like, oh yeah, you have to be self-employed for 2 years and show 1099s and a tax history for 2 years before you can qualify for a mortgage. So sorry, sucks. So this is why it's really important who your lender is, and if you have a good agent, they're going to have these discussions with you, and it's not necessarily that they're trying to steer you towards someone because it's more beneficial to us. We can't take any financial gain out of recommending you to people. However, we know that we're going to get to the finish line with somebody who knows how to do their job. So that's why we may make certain recommendations to you or advise you, okay, you want to move forward with this big national chain A or B, these are the risks that you're going to take, and as long as you're okay with the potential heartache of your offer not getting accepted or going under contract and finding out that you don't actually qualify because they didn't do their due diligence, then that's on you, I guess, if you move forward at that point with a lender that we think is probably not going to be in your best interest. Another thing that I've seen lenders not do their due diligence when they're pre-qualifying you is, let's say you have a lien against you for unpaid income taxes, and sometimes you don't even realize that you have that. But again, this is part of the lender's job, is to really do their due diligence on you as a buyer to pre-qualify you, to make sure that you actually qualify. And I've actually seen people a week before closing, things came up in title work, and title was actually doing a search on this person and found that they had liens against them for income tax purposes. And that becomes a whole nightmare, and deals fall through because of it. Another big factor is appraisals. If you have a lender who's not local, it can be very hard to get an appraisal done in a timely manner and have it be accurate. So again, there's so many factors that sometimes we as buyers don't even understand are an element of all of this, or you don't even think, well, what does my income taxes and a lien because I didn't pay them 1 year have to do with me being able to buy? It does. It's a big deal. So you have to have a lender who knows what they're doing. So please, 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 make sure you're using a good agent who understands all of those ins and outs, and who has good relationships with lenders in the area, and who understands what all these caveats are and what the good, bad, so that they can just help advise you as a buyer. I hope this is helpful. Happy shopping out there. Happy mortgage shopping. I pray the rates continue to come down for everyone. That's just going to make things a little more affordable for buyers. See ya.